Hello, everybody. This is CJ Wiley with more adventures on the road. Those road days were a lot of fun. I've told about 100 stories about living on the road for a number of years. And when you're gambling for a living, it seems like you bring in a lot of unforeseen circumstances, let's just say. So that day had to end, and I wanted to give credit where credit's due. It was my friend Roger Griffis that convinced me to play in my first professional tournament. And that was in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Roger was talking with me, and he was like, CJ, you've won a lot of money this year, but this gambling's getting ready to stop. He said, people just aren't going to play you anymore. I said, yeah. I said, but what do I do? Roger's like, man, I think it's time to go pro. There's a tournament in Toronto, Ontario that I'm playing at. It's called the Dufferin Classic, and all the best players will be there. You should go up there with me. He said, man, we can room together, and if nothing else, just have a good time. So I agreed to that, and we made arrangements, and we flew to Toronto, Canada. So it was at a big convention center downtown. I mean, what a beautiful city Toronto is. And I just remember how clean it was. And the subway systems didn't make any noise like they do in like New York. They squeak and squeal. And in Toronto, it seemed like that wasn't the case. I mean, it's been a number of years ago, but it's an awesome city. And that's where my sister went to college, at the University of Toronto. So that city has come up a few times in my life. So we got to the convention center and went up to our room, and Roger went downstairs, and there was a little practice room that we could warm up and practice before the tournament started, which was the next day. So I ended up going down there, and I saw Roger over with an older gentleman. So I just went right over. I was like, hey, Roger, what's going on? Are you playing good? You feel like you're in stroke? And Roger's like, there was like an uncomfortable silence. And Roger's like, hey, could you give us a minute? I'm taking a lesson. I said, oh, really? And the guy that was giving him the lesson gave me kind of a stern look, let's just say. We didn't hit it off right away. So I went to the other side of the room and just kind of watched him from afar. And I could tell that the man was showing Roger some really specific things and showing him like how to go down on the ball. And I didn't really know what it was all about. But later, Roger was all excited. He said, man, this guy really showed me something cool. He showed me how to position my feet where I can shoot out of the center of my chest, like the center of my vision. He said, I've been shooting to the side. He said, and I can't wait to practice this and get it down. And I was like, man, that sounds interesting, because, we do everything out of the center of our body, whether it's shooting a basketball or throwing a dart or pitching a coin or, just about everything comes out of the center, just like shooting a pistol is a good example. So, I was real curious about, maybe learning this, but the obstacle that I had was I knew that the guy that was teaching him didn't like me. The first impression wasn't good at all. And so, there's situations in life where if you want to really learn something from somebody, you have to go to them. They're not going to come to you. I learned that in martial arts. We would always respectfully bow and ask for the knowledge, and we had to be congruent about it. So taking that into real life, I applied one of my NLP techniques, which is match, pace, and lead, where you match the person, you pace the person, and then if you want, you can lead them into a better behavior. A lot of therapists use this when they're helping people with issues, but the match and pace is a rapport skill that most people do naturally. And the thing about this man was he was really serious, and he talked really slow and calculated. So I completely mismatched that. So I knew that was probably the reason we didn't hit it off, and my first impression wasn't good. So the next time I saw the man later on that day, I went up to him and sincerely apologized for disrupting their lesson. And he kind of looked me up and down and accepted the apology. I mean, I was sincere about it. He was a cool guy. So I just wanted to mend that, and then if I had a chance in the future, I could see if he would give me a lesson. So I played in the tournament. The first round, I drew this guy named Efen Reyes. And, it was either the first or second match. I can't remember for sure, but I was nervous. And I knew that if I was going to beat somebody like Efen, I had to go in with both guns blasting. Because here's the deal that I know from gambling. If somebody doesn't know you and you go out and show no fear and don't dog it, and just get out when you need to or when you're supposed to, man, there's a lot of times you can win your first match against somebody that's a better opponent because you kind of ambush them, so to speak. So that's what I did. I just psyched myself up, and from the very first game, I broke and ran the first rack, and then broke and ran the second rack. So I, felt like I certainly had a chance. Now, Efen, is a tough cookie, so he came back, and we went back and forth a little bit, and then I hit a gear, my brakes started working, and I think I ended up beating him 11-6. So my next opponent was Earl Strickland. Same thing, except Earl plays a different style. He plays more like I do. He's a highly aggressive player, and the only way that I can beat him is just out offense him. I can't beat him playing defensively. I've got to do the same thing. I've got to really get out when I'm supposed to and create that offense. And that's what I was good at anyway. So I went into that match. We went back and forth, and I ended up prevailing in that match. I think 11-9 or 11-8. So then I played Jimmy Rimpey, and I won that match, and Mike LeBron, who won the U.S. Open, I won that match, and Chris Wood, that was the best player at the time from Canada, or certainly one of the best. I beat him, and I ended up getting fourth in the tournament. The man that won the tournament was David Howard, and David is funny. I've known David for a long time, and he's used to smoking a little bit of enhancement. Well, when he went to Canada, he didn't have the nerve to take anything with him, so it affected his appetite. And since I knew him so well, he confided in me and said the only thing that he had an appetite for was shrimp cocktail. So he ate shrimp cocktail, I think, every meal the whole time that he was there, and ended up winning the tournament. This guy had one of the best breaks I've ever seen. And that tournament in particular, he was just running people over. I think he ended up, I can't remember who he played in the finals. I think it was Earl or Efen had went back through the losers bracket. So anyway, after the tournament was over, I saw that the man that had taught Roger, and I went up to him and I said, hey, I wanted to ask you a question. Would you teach me what you taught Roger? And he agreed. So we went over, and I think the lesson only was about an hour. And he showed me what he'd shown Roger. And it's basically the foundation of what I've refined and improved on as far as overall body mechanics and fundamentals. But it's the foundation of what I do and what I teach. And if I hadn't have learned this, my life would be a lot different, because there's no way, looking back, that I would have continued to beat those guys as consistently as I did, because I could tell even though I ambushed Efen and Earl and won that first time, I could tell that they did things better than me. I just couldn't tell what it was. Come to find out, it was how they go down on the ball. They have very few moving parts. If you ever watch Efen, he just goes straight down on the ball every time. But what you might not pay attention to is he's enabling himself to do that by his feet position. And there's a technique that just about every top pro does, whether they realize it or not. Instead of shooting off their right hip, right foot, right shoulder, they're lining up in the center of their eyesight, center of their chest. And then they drop straight down on the ball instead of swinging in and trying to find the line over to the right. Because like shooting a pistol, you shoot best right down the center of your vision. Your eyes work together. But if you move that pistol over like 3 inches, you'll lose your connection to the target. And even though when you go down, you can adjust for that, and that's what I was doing, and why I was such a slow starter. Like typically, and especially in gambling matches, it was actually a benefit to be a slow starter, because if you beat somebody too quick, they'll just quit. So I naturally stalled without knowing why. And the partners that I had at that time, excuse me, would be able to see when I clicked. And I don't know if they knew exactly what it was, but they could tell when I really got in a zone. So I must have been correcting for that somehow, subconsciously, so that I fell down in that slot every time. So anyway, if Roger hadn't have talked me into going to that tournament, I wouldn't have went to Toronto. I wouldn't have had those wins that really gave me a lot of confidence, because people were telling me that I played at that level, but I was still apprehensive, until you actually prove it. People can tell you all day long that you can beat champion players, but that really doesn't mean anything, because a lot of times playing, players that you have a deep respect for, you're not going to play as well. And fortunately, from all my gambling, I had a switch that I would hit, and I didn't really care who I was playing. I was just trying to beat them as quick and as many games as possible. And from my gambling career, that's generally what would happen. I'd go back and forth with somebody, and then I'd hit a gear, and I could win like 10 in a row, 15 in a row. I mean, there's a lot of times, I remember, one of my biggest matches, I won like 17 games in a row, playing a champion player, but it just, everything started clicking. I started breaking well and just getting out every time. But the reason that I'm so consistent, like one of the years that I played, I think it was 94, I played in like 15 professional tournaments and never finished less than ninth or more than ninth. I was in the top 9 every tournament. I just never won one. I kept getting beaten in the finals by really good players. Like Tony Ellen beat me in Reno. I think that might have been, I don't know if that was 94 or 95. But, it was named players that was beating me late in the tournament. Mike Sigel and Earl had beat me. As a matter of fact, that Z bank shot that Efen is known for, it's one of the best shots that's ever been made. Earl and I played the match before that at the Sands Regency in Reno, Nevada, and it came down to, I think I made a mistake to make it hill, and he ended up beating me 11-9. But if I would have won that match and played Efen, of course that shot never would have come up. So it's weird how fate works. And looking back and writing this book, it's really, it's like good therapy for me, and a wake-up call to how important my mentors were in life. And Roger Griffis was one of the main ones, and I didn't even realize how influential he was. He worked with me, worked for me at my pool room. I mean, we spent a lot of time together, not just gambling, playing pool, but doing all kinds of things. So we developed a deep respect for each other, and Roger would say, because he would gamble on himself, he wasn't scared, but he would tell people, if you want to play me, you can bet half of everything I've got. But if you want to play CJ, I'm betting it all. We used to laugh about that, but Roger had seen me get in that zone several times and knew what they were up against. So, and I couldn't even take credit for it. One thing about me is I don't really talk about my pool game very much. If I do, it's because I'm not playing and not trying to play at a high level at that time. Because, the more you take credit for stuff like that, the more your ego gets involved. And for me, I lose it. And I've had that signaled to me many times where I might play in a tournament, like a smaller tournament, and some friend comes in, I'll say, man, I haven't missed a ball or made a position error all night. And then I get up and I miss like 2 or 3 balls in a row or hook myself unnecessarily. And, just because I think I gave credit where credit wasn't due. Me. Because you gotta plug into the game, and if you're going to connect at that level, you got to let the game play through you. So any credit that you take for that is kind of acts as a blockade to reaching your full potential. So anyway, I've got a few more stories about Roger, but I'm going to get into some real heavy duty stuff here in the next couple videos, and tell what happened in my second professional tournament in Reno when I met Rebecca, who was with the Longevity Society, and they proposed for me to do a health treatment that definitely changed my life. Gave me a new lease on life, because after playing all those gambling matches and staying up all those hours, it had wore my eyes out, and I was having circulatory problems, and I could tell that I damaged myself. But what I'm going to tell you is something that they showed me and that I did that completely changed that. So anyway, if you want to know more about my fundamentals, techniques, and systems I use to become one of the top money players and the ESPN World Champion, join me at www.cjwiley.com. Until next time, this is CJ, over and out.